is the word inspire. And the word inspire etymologically actually means to breathe life into someone. We've all been around somebody that inspires you, right? That's what it feels like. They're like they breathe life, they breathe you energy. One of my focuses is for me to start to be aware of and understand the things, the people, the activities that breathe life into me, so that I can make them more a part of my life, right? So, for example, being out in nature is something that breathes life into me. I want to make sure that I do that as often as possible. And sometimes that's hard to fit in, or exercise is something that breathes life into me. And so even if I have to wake up early like this morning after getting in late like last night, I'm going to get up and exercise, whatever it is, right? So here's my point of this whole word of the year thing is, it doesn't have to be for the whole year, but I would like you to choose one of these words. To identify a specific attribute, quality that you personally as a leader can say, I'm going to work on that. I want to study it, I want to get better at it, I'm going to work on that and try and become more effective in this regard. So maybe it's better problem solver. Maybe you recognize that you can be more empathetic with your people. Or maybe it's trust. Maybe you've lost trust with certain people and you need to rebuild it, or whatever it is, right? No wrong or right answer there. Just the point is that you're going to focus in. Bless you. What is that, 9? I don't need to single you out. I just was very impressed. So grab one of those words, write that down. That's your first challenge, is to leave with a specific quality that you're going to work on developing. Now, what I'd like to do as we go through the rest of this morning is I'd like to add to this list some other thoughts and ideas I have of some things that great leaders do, some things that great leaders embody, some things that will help you to be more effective and more influential. To understand that a little bit, what I'd like to do is look at influence. I look at influence there's 3 types of influence. The first is what I would call situational influence. Situational influence means that people follow you because they have to in that given situation. So as an example, how many of you are a manager, a boss of some sort in this room? You have some position or title of authority. This would apply to anyone in that situation. In that given situation, there are people who have to follow you because you're in charge, you're the manager, you hold their paycheck in your hand. Outside of a work situation, this could be a school teacher, could be a traffic cop, right? In that given situation, they have authority. Here's my question. If you were to remove yourself from that situation outside of work, do you still hold any influence over those people? Do they buy into you because of your title, or do they buy into you because of who you are? Because there's a huge difference between the two of those, right? So the second type of influence is what I would call temporary influence. And these slides are there we go. Temporary influence means that people follow you because of what you've done. You've built a reputation. You've done some great things. Maybe you just led the way out of a burning building, or you just hit the game-winning home run, right? You've done something great, so people are going to be influenced by you. In a sales situation, this is probably an easy way to follow it. If I were to give a recommendation, right? If I were to recommend Kristen to Cheryl and say, she's great, because Cheryl and I have a relationship, she's going to go, okay, yeah, I'll listen to what Kristen has to say. That's temporary influence. Here's why it's temporary. If Kristen doesn't show up, Cheryl's probably not going to continue to be influenced by her, right? The same is true for me. I speak about 100 times a year. I've done this program many times, and just trust me, the last 100, I was amazing. Really, really good. You guys just don't really care, though. You just hope I'm pretty good today, right? That's how it works. And the same thing with your people. You have to show up on a regular basis if you want to continue to have influence over them. You can't just base it off of what you've done in the past. You have to keep performing. Well, the type of influence we're really after, the type of influence that really moves people, is what I would call lasting influence. And lasting influence, the big distinction is that people choose to follow you. There's a huge difference between people who choose to follow you and people who have to follow you, isn't there? When you give it voluntarily, when you see something in somebody you want to, you show up differently. You choose, and therefore you approach it with a different mindset, different energy, a different attitude. I think that people choose to follow you based off of two criteria. Based off of number one, who you are, and number two, how you treat them. Okay, so who you are takes in multiple different things. Your character, your confidence. I think ultimately what it boils down to is your integrity. Now, integrity is one of those interesting words that we throw around a lot. We think it's important. Often in this exercise it will show up on the list, right? Integrity. Trust is probably another word that we use for integrity quite often. You can define it in lots of different ways, but when I think of integrity, the person who comes to mind first off for me is Gandhi. And here's why. Gandhi never held a position of authority. He was never in formal office. He never had a title that people had to follow. He never had any positional authority, and yet an entire nation and most of the world has chosen to follow Gandhi's example and his teachings. One of the more obscure stories about Gandhi that most people have never heard that I really love is a story about Gandhi as he was leading the revolution of India to free himself from England. He was invited at one point to go to England and to speak at the House of Commons. So he made the trip over to England, and he showed up with an audience of about 400 people who were not excited to hear what he had to say. They were intrigued, but they were hostile, right? This was not their favorite person. Similar to how it felt this morning for me. But they were there, arms crossed, like just not engaged, just a little bit of disdain. And Gandhi stood up in front of these people, and he spoke for 3.5 hours. No notes, just perfect eloquence, and he turned that hostile crowd into a standing ovation. And afterwards, these reporters were amazed at what they had just seen. And this reporter came up to his secretary, a man named Mahadev Desai, and he said, how could he do that? How did Gandhi stand up there without any notes, without any, he just shared openly and he just completely changed this audience. How did he do that? And Desai's response was really interesting as it pertains to integrity. He said, when Gandhi thinks, what he feels, what he says, and what he does, they're all the same thing. So he doesn't need notes. He said, you and I, we think one thing, we say a second, we do a third. We need notes and files to keep track. It's kind of a gut check, isn't it? I think integrity is so vitally important. In fact, how many of you listen to podcasts? Anybody listen to podcasts in here? I host a podcast called the Relevant Leadership Podcast, and I have a new episode that comes out every Tuesday. And this is a shameless plug, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because the episode that dropped this morning is literally called 7 Investments to Make in Your Integrity. And I think just like anything else, when you invest into something, you get an ROI. I think the ROI of investing in your integrity comes back by increased character, increased reputation, and ultimately more influence because people buy into you.